Yes. Lucy Dilbert.
Here.
Rob Pennell.
Present.
Jennifer Broderick.
Present.
Craig Sims.
Here.
Steve Vitale.
Here.
Okay, public hearings, we have none. Approval of the agenda. Move. So moved. For a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Public comment on agenda items. I'll leave that to you, Barry.
Yep, so if you are in the Zoom meeting and would like to participate in the public comment, please either use the raise hand function or unmute or turn your camera on just so that we can signify that you wanted to make a public comment. Seeing none, Chairwoman, you're okay? Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. We do have one public comment for Dan Cove. Oh, okay. our one response was that he's okay. No public comment.
Approval of the minutes. We'll have 2 sets of minutes. February 2nd.
Did you do that last meeting?
No, they weren't. We took it off. They weren't ready yet.
Oh, I'm sorry. I guess it's just I signed off on them. It's good.
So,
Motion to approve is presented.
support. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carried for February 2nd, 2021 November, or 2021 minutes. February 11th, the special meeting minutes.
Motion to approve is presented.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Communication and correspondence workshop. I did receive communication from our Commissioner Vitale that he will be leaving us next month. He is resigning to move on to another community. Hopefully he can bring the same to them as he brought to us. And thank you very much for your support.
Yeah. I figured you were a lifer.
We'll miss you. Okay, does anybody else have any communication they'd like to share?
Yes.
Okay, matters for consideration, old business, master plan survey, just a brief discussion, update on where we're at.
So far, we have received 129 survey responses. It's one of the best survey responses we've gotten in a long time from the survey, so we're very pleased with that. I think we've also seen the response rate kind of dwindling off now, and I think it's a good time to kind of close it down and start analyzing the results that we got from the survey and start bringing you that feedback. So.
It was just reposted today, this afternoon, so I didn't want to wait till a few more days. And
Sure. Yeah. No, we can do that.
All right, so we'll review that next month at our regular meeting. Anything else with the master plan? Probably not. Okay, new business. Lombardo site plan review for Pembroke South, phase 2. We'll start with your presentation. If that's okay.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Brandon Wagner. I'm a project manager with Lombardo Homes. We're going to be going over a brief presentation of Pembroke South, our proposed site plan here. I just want to thank everyone being here tonight. I know it's been a lot of Zooms and COVID going on, so I appreciate everyone's attendance tonight and all your help with the technical difficulties has been nice too, so I appreciate all of that.
Actually, I can hold on just a second.
Yeah.
Anybody, are you good, Rachel? Can you?
That's a good idea.
No, just more so, actually, we should get him on video.
You want him on video?
Yeah.
Well, you do have Joe.
Oh, Yeah, we could, just, I'm thinking for the Zoom audience though.
Zoom's doing a presentation.
Oh, you've got it going.
I do have the presentation going on Zoom.
They can hear him.
Yes, through the microphone.
Does it sound loud enough? I know it's tougher than that. What?
Okay, sorry, I just wanted to make sure.
Okay,
Yeah, maybe.
I'm sorry. Rick? I don't know, Rick. Okay, thank you. Yeah, no problem. It makes things easier. All right, switching this. All right, next slide is just our agenda, so it gives you a brief overview of what we'll be discussing with you tonight. Next slide. Again, introductions, myself, Brent Wagner, project manager from Lombardo, project manager of Pembroke South. With me tonight is Greg Wheeling, our VP of Land Development. Below our names, you'll find our credentials. You've got the email, you've got the cell phone number, so if there's any questions, concerns anyone has, feel free to contact us. All our information is right there. Typically, before we have these meetings with the board and the planning commission, we like to meet with nearby residents of the community and talk about our efforts and our plans. Given COVID, we didn't really have that option. However, I did note on there, we did meet with the board over Zoom back in early October and discussed our plans for Pembroke South. The next couple of slides, I'm going to go over kind of just Lombardo, our presence with the community of New Haven. Attached here is an aerial of Decorah Park and Decorah Park North. Decorah Park, the community is sold out. We are actively building and finishing the build in that community. Decorah Park North, we ran open last year, and we reopened the community for sales. So we're actively selling there. We've got a model present in that community as well. Next slide would be our Amherst Village community. There's only a handful of lots left, 18 home sites remaining. And the next area would be our Pembroke and our subject area, Pembroke South, which we'll be discussing with you today. The existing Pembroke is a 132 home site. We have 2 home sites remaining. All the rest of the home sites are actively sold or under construction. And then Pembroke South, we have future city phase, and that is currently approved for 97 duplex units. Next slide here is the currently approved plan that we have. This plan has evolved over the years. It originally started with single family, a mixture of multifamily, had some duplex units in there. A revision, we removed the multifamily units, we added a duplex, and we also incorporated a 3-acre parcel for a future library as well. So as Pembroke South sits right now, it's going to be for 97 the duplex units. And then the next slide here is our proposed site plan that we're going to discuss with you tonight. The new layout eliminates all the duplex units. We proposed 63 single-family home sites. With this implementation of the home sites, we have a total production of 34 units in total. Back in 2008 and later years, our market studies showed that we wanted to have the duplexes. We thought that's where the market was going. Given the many years, we feel that the strong need for single-family homes is there with the demand that is present. Your typical lot size in Pembroke South would be a 50 by 110, which is just over 5,500 square feet. Your setbacks are 20 feet front, 5 foot side, totaling 10, and with a rear yard of 35. These lots in Pembroke South are very similar to lots in existing Pembroke. It makes a nice transition between the communities. Next slide here is an aerial over the 186-foot strip of land that's going to be deeded to Paymar. Just wanted to go over this information with you that over some conceptual plans and some unique features with the property, one being a 6-inch gas main going from east to west on the south part of that property. We ran into some issues with regarding the gas main in relation to lots being on the lot, built on envelopes. And also, if we were to extend those lots further, it would further extend that cul-de-sac length as well. So we didn't really want to remain that stretch of land to be open space. We felt that would put a burden on the HOA to have that additional open space, maintenance cost, and responsibility of it. And we knew the interest of Paymar wanted to extend, so we had that opportunity there. The next slide is our proposed landscape plan. A couple bullet point items that we have on here, we have street trees fronting on home sites, some additional trees within the proposed park, and also along the entranceway of Gratiot. There's a proposed berm along the eastern property line. There's a park and playground on the west side of the detention pond that's proposed. The playground is going to be similar in size and scope of what is existing in Pembroke right now, and it will be ADA accessible as well. We do have a proposed monument site along Gratiot. It's similar in features to what is existing at Pembroke with the Pembroke South logo. We have CBUs at the entrance and also a little library detail on there as well. We feel this adds a little bit of charm and character to the community. Kind of a little background on that is our civil engineer's son is part of the Scouts program, and when the time comes, they will be constructing that on the site. So. Next slide is our proposed product and elevations. These are the elevations and product that we are currently selling in Coral Park North and Pembroke. They are anticipated price range is $250 to $350. Again, these are market rates and they are subject to change. And your average square footage are anywhere between 1,400 to 2,800 square feet. A few of the challenges that we've noted on the site, one being the cul-de-sac. Our proposed length is 616 feet. Right now, exceeds that maximum of 600 slightly, and we feel that since there's only a slight increase to that, we feel that it's a variance would be suitable for that. Another challenge with the cul-de-sac is, which was part of the fire department review, was the concerning the unique diameter of that cul-de-sac, and we're comfortable that we can increase it to 96, which would be required. Another one would be the road size. We are going to be adding a detail in the notes to the plan restricting only one side parking. That signage would be on the side of the street that would have fire hydrants that will remain clearance for that as well. So that 28 typical that we provide would still allow for that 20-foot allowable travel through traffic. And then if you have any questions or concerns, I'm here.
Want to go through? Rachel, did you have any questions? Rob?
Yeah. Just off of your presentation, I'll start with those questions. The 18 sites in Amherst, are those all owned by you, or are they, some of those are slated for that Hamilton group, or?
Yes, Hamilton Homes has been constructing a few of those homes in the site, so they're not all owned by us.
So it's either going to be you or them
That's correct.
producing the last 18 lots?
That's correct.
Okay.
You should comment that there's another owner in there of vacant lots.
There is another owner of vacant lots here.
Yeah, Jack Odo at one point, I don't know if he still owns them, but at one point Jack Odo owned, I believe, 9 of them.
Oh, really?
It is correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. When you talk about, is it possible for you to take your plan and overlay it on the, or maybe you did, I didn't have time to look at it. Yeah. Can you overlay your plan on top of the satellite and send to us?
Yeah.
You can do it for sure. The 20-foot setbacks, that doesn't seem to be holding true in Pembroke now. There's a whole lot of driveways covered with the vehicles because they don't fit. I mean, literally one, doesn't even fit a car. I got it written down, the lot number. It's, so damn small they can't read it, but 132. I mean, that driveway doesn't even fit a car. So I think maybe New Haven's dropping the ball. They're not enforcing the setbacks, but are the roads going to be a different width in south than north?
No, they'll be this identical.
Okay, because there is parking. I don't see any restricted parking on the street currently in Pembroke.
Correct. I believe there was email, there was actually a concern most recently, and I believe there was signage that we are going to be providing in the existing Pembroke because we have that concern going on right now.
Okay. I really don't like the idea of decreasing the setbacks to 20 because it doesn't fit the cars and it makes those sidewalks unsafe and impassable by. And if you go through Pembroke, I took pictures. I think I had 17 pictures of the ones I took where the cars are hanging into the driveway because the driveways aren't long enough to support their truck or some of their cars. So I know that's on our checklist from our planner, but I don't like the 20-foot
Is the
setback.
front setback in Pembroke a little bit smaller?
Yeah, it was.
I thought it was like 15 or so.
I don't know. I tried looking up in my old paperwork to see what it.
Originally, Pembroke had lanes in it, and that's why the homes were closer to the front. Because it was going to have lanes behind the homes.
Yeah.
So the homes could be
Yeah, the
closer
front
to the
setback in
street.
Pembroke is smaller than what we're proposing for the south project. I just don't have that.
And I also think it looks quite strange that, like, when you come in Pembroke and the first 3 houses or first 2 are way up, and then the current homes are set back. So it looks very jaggedy, and it looks like that's what's happening in Decorah North now. They're not, it looks like those setbacks are closer to the sidewalk than what the current homes are. I could send you guys a thing that I went over it, and
Yeah, I can.
they're looking jaggedy too. It doesn't look like a nice row. And so where are you looking to put the place at in the,
It's going to be to the western part of the site, so where the detention pond is. There's access between, off that road, between the home sites. 15 and 60 small. See on the west side of the site,
okay.
near the pond.
When I looked at the set that's over there, it's a very small child type size set. There's no swing sets. There's no, this seems to have some space to it. Is it possible to increase the size of it, maybe put soccer nets or, like Decorah, they added a volleyball net. It seems to be pretty popular. I see people out at it far more than I thought I would see people playing volleyball. But it was cool to see.
I mean, we could look into some additional features, soccer nets, I don't know to the extent of that. I know Decorah is nice, but it's a much bigger community.
Oh, yeah.
You know, we're proposing the 63 homes, so, but an additional maybe swing set might not be.
Well, you said you're doing a master, so it's going to be one condo, one association is going to envelop both of these, right?
No.
They'll be separate.
They are going to be separate.
They will be separate, yes. So Pembroke existing will be separate to Pembroke South. Yes.
I mean, I know from Decorah and Decorah North, as far as the amenities and our communication, it's very integrated. We might pay for it at Decorah, but we don't not have people from North come and participate in what we're doing. I mean, that might change when you fill it up, that there might be some shared spending, I would think. But at this point, and the size of it, you know, they just participate with us. And I would guess that would probably happen there as well, because it's so close to the community. And I don't know how many originals are still left that, you know, we're planning on having a pool when they bought it. That was originally slated for them. And that never came to fruition. So it would be nice to see something created there that's a little larger. So the part that you're getting rid of to Paymar, that is actually has quite a few trees and wooded in on that property currently, which is a nice natural barrier to Paymar, to the homes on that cul-de-sac. I understand what you're trying to say about the association and cutting it, but I think that distance from the kind of thing that goes on at Pembroke, that piece of land is a really nice, it's probably what, 100 feet?
Yep. 186.
I mean, it's a nice width to separate and maybe add more trees to keep, so these people don't have to look at the large equipment that they keep in that yard, versus moving it right up against those homes.
There's no trees there.
Yeah, there's trees along the line. I could see them from, I only went off the edge of your street. I didn't walk in there. I
Yeah.
put a foot out there past the rocks.
There might be a few trees here and there. Yeah, given even if we extended, you know, let's say we didn't have the influence of the gas lane, we extended those homes, or were able to achieve that, we'd still have the influence of Paymars there existing with, you know, our proposed homes.
Yeah,
So,
it was nice to see a larger barrier than just putting that lot right up against those lots over there. Are you planning on, well, but also, are you planning any trails for these wooded parks?
no trails, no. The only trail would be leading to the park, and that's it.
Well, maybe you guys could look at adding a trail. I think they're pretty popular. I always see tons of people in the chorus. Brian can probably really speak to how many he sees out his back door all the time. I didn't see any. But the trail I thought is a great feature for living there and to walk. I would really like to see that the recreational part of this expanded a bit for the residents. Okay, let me pull up this. On the entrance sign, it looks like it's kind of tilted, so you see it from Gratiot going north, and it's not two-sided. And there is, I guess a shared property line there with fence and a barbed wire fence and trees all growing through it. And I think we need to either make it, some kind of an arrangement with the two of you guys to just remove that fence because it looks terrible. It would be nicer to see the Pembroke sign seen from north or south, so if they're coming from the north, they just don't pass up Pembroke and have to swing around and do something else to get back to where they were, because
Where
you
do you
won't see this.
I'm sorry, can you elaborate? Do you not know where you're at?
It's on one of the pages where it says, the old admin building, I don't know what it's called now. the
Oh,
industrial
okay, yeah,
admin.
the J&Q.
Yeah, if you look at this plan here,
Okay.
and if you look where the sign is located off of Gratiot, it's like on an angle against the fence. So here's the fence, and here's the sign. And then the fence goes up well past the sign. So that nasty fence, there hasn't been a real need to address it, but I'm sure it's a code enforcement violation because the fence has become grown with trees and it's not in
You know
great
whose
repair.
property that's on?
What's that?
Whose property that's on?
I don't know if it's on a shared property line or if it's owned by,
It's something we could look into, even if it's not on our property, we can approach and have the conversation, because obviously it's our entrance, so we want
Yeah.
it to, look better than what's existing there, so that's a conversation we could have.
okay, great, because that just looks terrible. I thought it was really nice how you set up the mailboxes.
Yeah.
With the indent,
Yes.
so the traffic isn't in the main drag. I thought that was a nice feature. I always sit and wait in front of the core mailboxes for, they're always halfway away from the mailbox to be by. Let's see, did I get through everything on this one? double-sided, let me see from the south. The 2-inch caliper trees, I'd like to see a larger caliper so that these trees grow at a faster rate than they have. And a problem that we had in Decorah was whoever you guys hired to put in the trees, they didn't put them all in properly. They didn't necessarily release the ball at all. And those trees ended up dying and having to be pulled out, and the association had to pay for the replacement of those trees because they weren't properly done. And I guess I'd make that suggestion to the village as well to better inspect the planting of the trees. But I'd like to make you aware of it as well that, I mean, granted, that's 15 years ago. I
Yes.
hope you don't,
It's an ongoing conversation we have with our contractors. Given the time of year, when they plan on, they're usually required for, certificate of occupancy on the home, and we put that on the homeowner, water your tree and talk about staking and when we remove things. So it's a conversation that we educate the homeowner, and we're trying to educate our contractor as well, and try to,
and I would like to see that as a requirement to, in your master deed or bylaw, that you can't take the tree out. The tree stays. Tree-lined streets become beautiful. And if it dies, replace it. It fits to the overall community. Okay, going back to this drawing, I got a list here. I've seen in some communities where they take the sedimentation pond and put something in it, a filter, or not a filter, but something to keep the water disturbed, a fountain.
an aerator.
Yeah, something to keep the water moving so that it doesn't reek and it looks better than, if you go back into Decorah Parks, it looks terrible. The water stands there and it's nasty.
I think we can look into it. It depends on the depths of the ponds and how much water it maintains and holds.
I mean, and the way it's laid out here, it's definitely something you're going to see going through the neighborhood. Where ours is hidden, only the walkers and bikers see it on the trail. But it would be nice to see something done to keep it in a better condition than, unfortunately, the way Decorah's is. I see on the map here you got 60-foot wide and it says private on the streets. Are these streets actually private?
No, it's a typo.
That's a typo.
Yeah.
Okay, because in your numbers there it says you want to pass them over to the village.
That's correct.
In your proposal, it states that you're going to start with from the entrance to build.
Correct.
That's phase 1.
Yes.
I'd really like to see you start with the back part, so that when you finish those homes out on that phase, there's no construction traffic going down, passing through where it doesn't need to be. Because you're going to make if these homes on these outer edges here are the last homes, then that's where the traffic will be, in Temple Street as its name would be free of any construction traffic, instead of it having to be driven down there. Because I went through the roads there in Pembroke, and man, they're in rough shape.
Yeah, our thought process of building that Gratiot entrance, being part of phase 1, that's where the construction traffic will come through.
Yeah.
And the existing Pembroke won't have to tolerate, a new community coming in and having all the construction traffic come out to Clark through their entrance. So that's why we were really focused on making that, the primary entrance to the community and for construction.
Are you putting a model in at Pembroke?
Right now, there's no plans for a model.
Okay. Yeah, I'd really like to see it flip the phases so that when phase 1 is complete, there's no need for construction traffic, the street stays clean, it's not full of nails. I've lost 3 tires. When I lost one on that damn truck, I was saying bad stuff about you guys at Lombardo because that was an expensive tire to replace with the nails that fall off these vehicles. So it'd be nice if those people, once they're in and it's complete, at least that section of it is not having to live with that. Number 2. So this other park over here that's all treed in between the two,
Yes.
is there any amenities being added in that area at all?
No, that's just a woodland preserve area, so no amenities.
So I'll push that back to I'd like to see. And then cover number 3, a path. Also, this rounded path that's coming through there, is that big enough for a police car to travel that?
Which pathway, I'm sorry?
In between 59 and 58.
To the park.
Oh, into the park?
Yeah, if a police car wants to drive back there to see the park, since it's not in an open area.
It'll be 8 feet wide.
8 feet wide?
So it should be of a quality that the police can get their car to drive back there. They can back out, but,
Yes.
I mean, it does happen to the corner where the police have just driven right onto the trail, when there's an issue. Number 4, I covered the Paymarsh strip of land. I'd really like to see that retained as part of it. And, can you explain to me the library parcel? Is 104 and 105 the library?
The 3 acre parcel's just to the right of our entrance coming on in here, so
The 3 of them?
it's a 3 acre, sorry.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
So there's 104, 105, and 106 are the ones that we see on the map?
Yep.
So I didn't know if the library was 104, 105, and 106, or is it 1 or 2? How much is their frontage, I guess?
I believe the library parcel is the entire frontage to this, coming into our entrance, leading to that first left-hand turn there.
Yeah, I see where it goes to the back. I'm looking at the frontage on Gratiot,
All along
and there's
Gratiot.
lot numbers there. There's lot 104. Your driveway's in lot 103.
Includes 2 of those parcels.
The new road will be partially on our property and partially on the library property. We have a cost sharing agreement with them for
Okay.
whoever builds the road first.
Yep. So how far does the library stretch over? Does it take over all of 104 and all of 105?
It splits somewhere underneath the road, the proposed road pavement, somewhere in that area. I don't know the lot number offhand.
I'm talking to the south.
Yeah, there's 2 lots there. It'd be 2 of those. I can't see the numbers. It's too small in that print, but. it'd be
Those 2 lots?
Those 2 lots and then a portion of the main entrance coming in.
Okay, so it's none of 106.
No.
If you want, you can look at mine. So here's 104, 105.
Yeah, so it
106.
just covered right up through there.
Okay, so this is the property.
Yep.
Okay. None. And I don't know, have you seen any of their plans for that property?
No.
I know it was, seemed to be going somewhere a few years ago, but I haven't heard anything about it in the last year or 2. Okay. I mean, we'll probably hear more about this at the public hearing, but I do have a concern about this becoming a cut-through like the Core Park Boulevard is becoming River Oaks. I mean, a lot of people that come out of Meadow Creek don't want to go to the Gratiot. Granted, it's better than it used to be, but we get a lot of traffic through the core that belongs elsewhere.
Yeah, we looked into that for that consideration. We get that a lot in our communities. The way we look at it, we actually see it kind of a reverse, Pembroke traveling through Pembroke South to maybe get to Gratiot, but if you're coming Gratiot going north, I don't see anyone coming through Pembroke South to cut through Pembroke to get to, let's say, Amherst.
I see it really being, because Gratiot can get backed up. People cutting, so they don't have to sit in that line there and cut through from the Pembroke South entrance through north. So I don't know what we could really do about it, but it is definitely a concern for me. I don't know if I'd really like the input from the neighborhood. Should there be, like where Pembroke and South join, some kind of gate there? So it's for emergency vehicles only, so Pembroke goes out their side, South goes out their side, and there's a gate there for the fire department if they need it for their second entrance. It's just a thought, I know that was a thought back, yeah. Everyone see where lot 116 is in the sedimation pond there? And it's dark where the road, the new road will be. I don't have any answers, it's a thought that I have that,
I'll try to address some of
okay, that takes care of that. Now you're gonna do the overlay. This is just my thought, but I mean, I think of some people that have been in the village and have done some great things. Would it be all right if we use these streets to name it after somebody of significance in New Haven that we could name a street after, since it's a new street? And sir, would it be?
We would be open to that, of course, depending on, I guess, who you're looking to honor or name it after. We're not looking to have anything that's controversial for our communities, no more than you are, I'm sure.
No. I mean, there
But
are
yeah, we
certain
would
people
certainly
that have
do it.
had a lot of controversy around them. I wouldn't suggest we do any of that, but there's other people that have, that built the community, that I don't think have that type of, like a couple names I would think of is the Harm family. Mr. Harm was a president in the 60s. Heck of a nice group of people. They still have a house here in New Haven on the corner. His wife's still there. The Duncan family was a big family here, and never got a street named after him. He was the first postmaster. The funeral home was the Duncan Funeral Home. I just thought it would be nice if we used this. I think it'd be more of a council, probably prerogative how it gets named, but it seems like it'd be nice to use it for us versus Danbury Street or Auburn Street. So that was another thought. You guys can weigh in on that. Well, I covered the lot 132 in Pembroke, which is terribly too short. Mailboxes in that cutout. When you build the operation, can we go right to the mailboxes and no temporaries?
Yeah, we would build,
As long as the post office is okay with it.
again, yeah, the buy-in to the post office, if they're okay with it, we would put the CDUs for the amount of homes, so they're all there.
I mean, Pembroke had them temporary mailboxes for many years before they got replaced. And they're just not secure in this day and age to have mailboxes that are, you can go in there and flip them all open.
Yeah, we like to just put the permanents in, but sometimes the postmaster require a temporary location or temporary throughout the construction, and we have to convert back to permanent, but we'd like to do the permanent measure if it's possible.
Okay. Back to the roads again. I guess the core park roads have seen their fair share of wear and tear with all the construction traffic, but it at least is cement. I mean, Pembroke looks pretty rough. Is there a reason that the core north were done in cement and Pembroke is asphalt? Could we? I mean, I'm guessing there's a cost difference.
Yeah, there will be a cost difference.
It's basically,
Probably matching to what's existing from Pembroke and carrying that throughout Pembroke South.
Yeah, it just the wear and tear, it just doesn't stand up to all the construction that goes on there. I would like to see it done in cement myself. And I mean, I had a great deal of problems with the roads being turned over to the village before the construction was completed and the bonds were released before the roads were fixed. I want some very strong language that we're not going to go through that again. And there were problems with parental title, and the whole thing was a big, huge disaster. And I really want our lawyers to nail down in that part of it, that we're not getting stuck again with what we have there. I mean, when the village took those roads in Amherst, Decorah, there was a lot of damage to them, especially Amherst. But yet, because of the people that were here, they let it go. Not looking to name any streets after those people. The street signs that you're going to provide. It'd be nice if you did it in a more decorative style than, you know, the wood ones. I don't know what the cost difference, but maybe look at a black iron street sign that makes the neighborhood look even more special. And putting them up right away. You used to do really nice decorative wood signs. They don't last the test of time. I mean, in Amherst, they look beautiful all back when, but they don't stand the test of time. And it'd be nice if you could do something more permanent, in a metal black maybe, or something of that nature, and more decorative, a little more upper class. A big concern of mine is in the village of New Haven, we lose so many people because we're not offering homes that are bigger in size, that can handle, or nicer, you know, as their incomes go up. We don't really have the offering. That's where, like, your offerings that you're offering now, it's going to be the same thing that's at Decorah, the same houses that it looks like you're putting in the north, the same ones you put in Pembroke. It's not a variety of housing that allows for someone to have to move to Macomb Township to get a bigger house. You know what I mean? And so I have a lot of lenience from my side of giving you setback issues, except in the front, but to expand your house envelope to get more house and more bang for the buck for you guys. Of course, you know, I think New Haven's worth giving another option, that if they want to move out of Decorah or Amherst, that they have something more and still be able to stay in our community. And I'm sure everybody here knows people that's just not an option. They've had to move to other communities, and it keeps us transient. It keeps our upper schools empty and our elementaries packed full because it's all so much starter home. And now we're getting Meadow Creek expansion. There'll be a lot of little kids as people start out there. And it'd be nice if we were a place to end up as your last house before you move into the retirement center. I asked about the phases. Oh, okay, that's the end of that. That's scouting. I like the add-on with the library. That was really nice too. We just got some new ones out here from one of our Eagle Scouts, David Martin. So let me pull another picture here. I didn't do anything on this one. This one's got notes. This is the more of the blow-up size of. It doesn't show Pembroke, it just shows south. The road, how many, are you going to put sod in the entrance so many feet into the library space?
Yes.
So I just want that ended up being spelled out, that it's going to be landscaped so many feet into that. So that it's not a weed garden growing over on the library side or side that isn't.
Yeah, well, typically for our soil irrigation side will be
Okay.
provided.
You'll put irrigation on that side of the road?
If there's side, yes.
Okay. Because it's kind of similar to like what was done in Decorah North.
Yes.
When you pull in, I don't know, maybe it's a span of 15, 20 feet.
Yes.
It's all sodded all the way down the sidewalk. I'd like to see that spelled out. The sprinklers, the amenities, the sign. There might be a lot of repeat stuff I got on here. Oh, I was really curious when the people come if they like that berm along the Chenault subdivision, or if it just takes up their yard and they don't like it. I kind of like to hear from the people that are living in Pembroke what they think of that. And you're not proposing any berm along Kmart side of the road, or side of the...
Correct, yeah, we don't have one on our portion with the Pavement piece, just on the east property line.
I mean, I hope that you just keep that property and throw a bunch of trees on it and let it grow. And don't have berms. I don't know. Most people I know that have berms don't like the dang things. Yeah, go with the lawnmower, go back and down with it. But again, we should hear more from the neighbors. It's a question I would propose to them. And that's, I think, all I got.
Thank you, Rob.
Thank you.
Greg, do you want an opportunity to speak on any of that before, or do you want to go all the way around?
Your preference, I took notes, I can address some of that stuff. I was taking the notes for Brandon, so it's easier if I address them. Or if you want to go through the
Just
rest,
keep going and do it all at once?
whatever you like.
Okay.
The only question I had was, I was trying to look with Rachel on this lighting proposed around the streets. Is there going to be street lighting? 'Cause I'm not sure if Pembroke has lighting. I know Decorah has lighting on the streets. Is that laid out on?
We do not propose any lights on our plan right now.
That's actually an oversight, then I'll address that.
Tracy? I did actually. I agree with Rob with the roads concerns, obviously, from that experience and such, so, you know, getting that, the street names, I like that idea. The cut through with Pembroke, I'm not as concerned about that.
What's that? I'm sorry.
The cut through, I don't see a lot of people doing it. You know, I live in Amherst, I don't cut through Chenault, that exists right now. I just, I think, I don't know, I'm not as concerned about that.
So you don't think there's a lot of cut through Chenault, no?
No, I think, you know,
That's good to hear.
if there was an incident or something at the corner,
Yeah.
the police are gonna cut us through anyways. I don't think it's, I don't see it now, I don't foresee it in the future. I would never cut through there to be honest, if I'm really being honest, I would cut through Decorah. I mean,
Yeah.
it's 2 right turns if I'm coming from up the road, I might, but I try not to because I know it takes you guys off.
Yeah, I don't know what it's like over there to say yes or no. To me, it's in my head.
Right, I really just don't see it happening. I mean, I'm sure the odd person will, but I just don't see this thing. I guess I have one more question on the association. Is it going to be like a tiered association like Amherst Village, and then a higher one? Or it's going to be 2 completely separate entities?
Yep.
Okay. So they will not have any shared contracts or maintenance agreements? How?
There would be a shared cost with the stormwater.
Okay,
shared
and how
basin.
would that be shared through a master?
No,
Or-
it's just a separate agreement. I can address that.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's it. That's all I have. Tracy?
I'll piggyback, Jen, about the traffic and Rob, and my experience as well is, I think moving forward, but that's gonna be a county conversation, is there's gonna have to be some, what are those little turnouts?
The players?
The little flares, because you do get held up at, is it Chenault?
Yep.
With people turning into Chenault, but I'm not sure if that falls on their plate. But I think that's gonna be discussion moving forward. That's where the backup ends, but.
Yeah.
I
never
had a
backup
semi
at the
pass
light.
me on the side.
Pardon?
Somebody was turning onto Clausen and I had a semi go off onto the shoulder to pass me right there.
Very big money-making opportunity for our sheriffs. Constant, people are passing, you know, and you can't pass, it's not a pass. So eventually, I think the county's gonna have to.
There is a turning lane right there, isn't there?
No, I
No,
don't think
no.
there is.
It stops at
Does
Decorah.
not exist
Does
there?
not
Okay.
The bridge right there prevents
Oh,
it
that's
from
right.
having it. So
Yeah.
it's just up to the bridge and then after.
And the other thing I have, I'm gonna follow up on the street signs, is I think it is in everyone's best interest if you, I know we want a pretty sign, Rob, and I'm not disagreeing with that, but I think if they install the standard street signs, because the street signs will be the village's responsibility once they take over the roads. So when the signs need to be replaced, the village can only replace them with like state-approved signs, which is that rebar type looking pole with the green sign.
I don't know if that's a state requirement. You see them in not just developments, downtown areas.
But if a sign needs to be replaced, the village won't because it's not the standard MDOT sign. It would be on
Correct.
the association to fix the sign.
Correct.
And we could
So-
word it that way, couldn't we? We could word it that way as well, couldn't we? That the replacement of the sign would be an association issue, not a
No,
village
because
issue.
the association doesn't own the roads, the village does, so it's their responsibility.
Well, I can tell you that the street signs in Decorah, the association had to end up paying those.
So
Because
does
the
the
village
borough
wouldn't
own their
pay
own
for it.
streets?
No.
Mr.
No, the village maintains up the village page.
No, that was, me and Dilbert had a little go
The
around.
village won't because they're fancy signs that cost more.
No, they're just green signs.
So
In Decorah, it's a green sign, the regular green sign?
Yeah,
Right, so the village, if the village owns those streets, if they were turned over, it's the village's responsibility to replace any damaged or broken or missing sign.
that's what I'm saying, the village wouldn't
Well-
replace those signs.
That sounds like maybe an administrative issue that wasn't handled properly, which moving forward, that should not happen. But if they don't do the standard sign, is the village willing to foot the bill for that upgraded sign? Is my question. So that's why I think,
Yeah, I think it's a question for proposed, but I think making things look nicer and better, I would love nice signs throughout the village in this small little town to adopt a sign. I mean, it's more pricey and it costs more to replace when you have to replace it. But just like when you cruise into Richmond, it all looks nice uniform signage throughout the community and it looks sharp. It looks
I don't.
upper level than what we're doing here, and I think we should keep moving upper level here. If we don't push it up, no one's gonna think it should be up.
Well, I think it's up, and I live here, and I think it's up, so we need to understand that too, with all due respect. Because, anyway, moving forward, I think we need to have a conversation about the signs, whether there's a pause on that momentarily until
Yeah.
maybe council wants to decide to replace all the signs in the village that look nice and cohesive.
I mean, that was
But we're
something we
setting up-
could put in our master plan, is that's what we're shooting for, more
But
a
at this,
decorative look.
but at this point, we're setting the village for a larger expense.
Yeah,
So.
I agree.
That's my concern about the street sign. And, Paymar, the intentions. Now, you said they were interested in the property to expand. Obviously, you can't speak on their behalf, but what were their intentions? Because that is zoned,
Correct. Right now, it's residential, so it'd have to be rezoned light manufacturing, so it would have to be rezoned to that as well.
okay? So those would be questions that I would have about the zoning and what their intentions for that property were, budding up to residential housing.
Sure.
And street signs, the traffic through, separate HOAs. And purely out of curiosity, do you have any lots in Decorah North sold and how many?
Yes, we have sold, I believe, is it 10?
Yeah, it's 10 or 11, and I think we've got 4 or 5 basements in now.
Okay, just purely out of curiosity, thank you.
Yep.
Okay. Trey?
I see in your presentation the models that you're using, are the same as in Pembroke. Are they going to have brick fronts or are they going to have vinyl fronts? It says brick, I just want to.
It'll be same as what we're doing in Pembroke, just continuing that architectural flow into Pembroke South.
Okay. And then this piece that you proposing to sell the Kmart, you indicated at the beginning of your presentation that it was to help with cost, not having to maintain that for that association. So it's kind of like a twofold question. Why wouldn't you make it one large association that could absorb the cost to maintain that? And what is your thinking behind wanting to separate them instead of just adding those 63 units into the current association?
Typically, when we have an established association with a new product, or excuse me, a new site, we like to keep them separate. They're already established, they've got their own board, there's no other influence coming in. So we like to see them separately.
Just you like to see them separately, that's your only rationale for it?
I'll address that
Okay.
when I get up. There's several reasons.
Because I think that the community, if they're combined in one, it would be more financially stable and sound
Yeah.
than having two separate ones, especially one with only 63 units. Their costs could start going up $600, $700, $800 a year to maintain what they have, as opposed to staying at the $400 or $500 range when you combine it with the north part. Because we have 130, 135,
32.
132, double of what you're proposing in there.
Mhm.
And there are still times of financial hardship in Pembroke.
Sure.
Just starting now, the last 2 years, pull out of that. So all I'm asking is to think about combining them. It would make more sense financially for both communities. That's all I had.
I had a small question on frontage on the cul-de-sac. Seems like 32 feet is pretty small. And then only 5 feet between the next home. I mean, by the time you put at least a 16-foot driveway, right? You have a 2-car garage? Or a 2-car driveway, you mean?
It's pretty typical.
So the lots do flare out at the back.
Yeah, I know it fans out
So
to
you
the
push the
back.
house back a
Some
little
is like
further so
that,
you don't
but,
have that.
you know, like I said, 32 seems like it's awfully tight.
Yeah.
Or someone does say that.
You have that problem before right now, houses on the corner that they don't have any street frontage.
Right. Yeah, I mean, my son can barely even fit a car in front of his house, and his is bigger than what this is describing. And also, when you talk about naming streets, I would also like you to consider people of color that have served this community. You know, one gentleman who was the first black man in Macomb County to serve in office, to be buried in her cemetery, and served as a pastor, and helped many people in the community. So his name was Roy Smith. And like I said, there was John Mack, who
I think you
served
got it,
everyone.
Rita.
Who served everyone, so, like I said. And that's all I have to say.
I am going to go over to John Surmed, and is Dan still there?
Yeah.
Just so you can answer everything at once.
Okay, that's fine.
Is that good with you?
Yeah.
Hey, Jen,
Instead of-
I do have questions because I didn't pull out my book.
Okay.
Craig pulled it out and it dinged in my head that I didn't address. I remember when Decorah was built, one of the big things in Amherst was the front of the home. The concept was being big porches, neighborhood community, go out there and sit, hang out, talk to people as they walk by. And some of the houses that you're building are all garage fronts. And I just don't see those homes, I'd like to see those discontinued, where that it's just a big old front garage sticking out and a little tiny porch. It's just not the same concept that other subs had that I think drew people here. I think that the theme in both those subs. And you guys did a good job promoting them too. I mean, that was part of the thing on our house. Because I asked to extend my garage 2 feet. Oh no, that ain't happening here. The garage does not go past the depth, past the house. The garage must be either equal or less than the front portion of the house and the porch. Those things have to be the forefront. It creates a better, more cohesive neighborhood. I go back to the days when Mr. Lombardo would bring that carriage out there and do a lot of promoting out there, and everybody get a ride in the horse and buggy, and I think that created a good buzz. But you got a couple, the Luddington, the Mystique, they're all very garagey front ends, and the house is set back. It's better in your book where you can see the actual floor plan. But I really don't care for those homes. And when I look down Ravine Street, I don't see porches, I don't see neighbors, all I see are garages separating everybody, which really went against the original theme of Decorah Park. I'd like to see that discontinued in North and Pembroke, that house design. It does nothing for me. It just doesn't look nice. And it would be nice if you stuck to the elevations where it's a full porch. Like the J elevation here has a full porch. Instead of the little slab porches. Those don't, again, bring people out.
I don't know, I have a slab porch and I'm out front all the time.
I wholeheartedly disagree with you on everything you said about those porches.
The little porch?
Yeah.
I agree. I would purchase a house with a front porch.
Do you like it?
My neighbors
The people
gather
have
at
an
my
option
house.
of doing something that has a porch.
Yeah.
Do you like it with the garage out front?
I have a Luddington. I got the Craftsman style. I paid the Craftsman style because I would like to look. If people want to pay extra for it, it's there. It's the option for them. There's 4 elevations to choose from for every model. And if they choose the lowest elevation, it's probably because they're putting the money on the inside.
And I guess that, even that, I liked how the neighborhoods had a theme, classical. Your new way of doing it has all these different typeface homes versus, sticking with the theme, like you did at Macomb. Well, there's a recreation center, then you guys built that sub, can't think of the name of it, off of 24 Mile in Romeo Plank area.
Macomb Town Center South. We didn't build that though.
But then you own the property and kind of like start it up as being.
No, we own a vacant strip in there, but we did not break ground on that.
Oh, I thought you guys just farmed it out to other people. Like I had a Heartland house, in Lombardo stuff. But the theme of the houses made it very cohesive. And to buy a house in there, whoo, baby, it's expensive.
See, now I know people that would disagree with you because they don't like the fact that all houses look the exact same from one to the next.
Yeah, I don't want to look the same either. I don't think Amherst or Decorah Park have a look alike. They have a theme, but they don't look alike. They don't have the same fronts. They don't have the same porches. Some wrap around. Some, there's a lot of variety in those 2 subdivisions.
Yeah, I think there's a market for everyone here, so,
Yeah,
I mean,
there's
if they
20
don't like
houses.
A, they can do the other, so.
Okay. That's it. That's all I got on the houses.
Thanks, Rob. Okay, I'll start with John.
Okay, so first off, looking at the zoning and use, I just want to make a correction on the site plan. It states that it's zoned multifamily with a PUD overlay. It's actually zoned SF2 and general business with the PUD overlay, so just make a correction. The setbacks, as noted, they're smaller than what the traditional requirement is for single family 2. However, you guys are proposing a decreased level of density, even though that you would be able to technically build more than what you're proposing at the site. What I noticed that you guys are doing is you're proposing more than what is required for the open area and preserved area. So it looks like there's a trade-off between decreased density and increasing the amount of green space in the preserved area. So it's a benefit for that PUD approach for development. So with that said, the village council has the authority to approve these types of dimensional amendments if there is a perceived benefit towards the community. It doesn't adversely affect the intent of the PUD, and I don't believe that's the case in this situation. Because of the parks and recreation amenities and everything else that's going on here. Landscaping, as noted, they have the berm that's proposed. There's also a park and playground area, as well as the library developments that you have throughout the site. And I think those are all great amenities. I think there could be greater discussion on the berm itself and whether you guys want to pursue that or not. But I think that's something that we can discuss and figure out what we want to do there. As well as the sidewalks, it shows that there's a 5-foot sidewalk throughout the extensive development, which is a very nice development feature, something that we really pursue and try to encourage. So we like that. And then lastly, it's just the drive width, which I'll leave Forester Med as well as Fire to address. But from what I see, I would recommend that the Planning Commission recommend approval to the Village Council for this development and what's being proposed in front of us.
Did they have a copy of your?
I sent it to Lori. I don't know if they sent.
Did you
guys
receive?
Yep.
We did.
Sir Med?
Yes, ma'am. So our review was issued February 9th. I'm not sure who you guys got it. Perfect. So I'm just going to hit on the highlights. Everything else we could address during the engineering stage. That parcel where the library is, that right away needs to be dedicated before we can, propose all these improvements over there. The general comments about, what kind of water main sanitary that you have. All the state permits need to be amended to reflect this new layout.
Yep.
The paving, we said 20, that's minimum without parking, but I saw since then that you updated your proposal to put no parking on one side, and so we'll leave the access to fire department to address that. As far as pavement, your ordinance allow either a 7-inch concrete with a 6-inch base or an equivalent asphalt. So that's what these guys are proposing, an equivalent asphalt section. We can't dictate one material or the other. It has to be or an equivalent material, and this is acceptable.
I thought we had those abilities because it was a PUD that we had that flexibility to ask. It's not a platted suburb. I mean,
Kind of is. What's the preference between concrete that you would like to see?
the durability of it is. Have you driven through Pembroke?
Yes, but concrete deteriorates a lot faster if you don't maintain it correctly, and it costs a lot more to replace than asphalt.
Yeah, I do agree with that too. And I'll put that at you, Tracy, that the Cora Park really needs to have their cracks sealed. I've been bugging for a couple of years to seal the cracks so that the weather doesn't get up and under those spots. And I mean, I don't see the big deal about why it hasn't been done, because we have highway money to use for that.
I agree with you, Rob, and that's probably something that maybe not this commission pursues, but maybe collectively some of us can.
Well, and there's a new
come together,
administration.
yeah, and find out what do we have to do to maintain our roads properly. What's this? So
I have asked that of the previous administration. So that means the new dawn or whatever, the new people. So it would be nice to not let them deteriorate. But overall, when I look at Decorah and I look at Pembroke, it might be cheaper to fix, but man, is it a mess compared to Decorah.
So, yeah, again, concrete is more durable, and it lasts longer if it maintains properly.
Yeah.
Once it's turned over to the village, now the village is responsible for maintenance. And if you recall, in the old Rooney subdivision, it's all concrete roads. And they lasted 40 years, but then they finally gave up. Now that mill and overlay to asphalt was the proper rehabilitation option. Because if we bust all that concrete, put concrete back, it's going to cost a lot more than what we've seen right now. So asphalt is usually cheaper to maintain because you can mill and overlay that top layer fairly quick. Within a few hours, you can open the road. Concrete, you would have to wait 3 days for initial strength and then 28 days for final strength. And it's balances. So normally for an engineering standard and code, you would offer one section and an equivalent section, and they both accept it.
Can I add something here on the Roney sub? Most of the roads, the majority of the roads, for their first 20 years, that 40-year life, were hardly used. That subdivision really didn't start being developed until the 90s. There were the first two streets and along Manning, the main street coming in, were really the only streets pretty much traveled. The rest of them were developed later.
That's very, very smart comment because the road is a function of how much do you use it. So how many axles you hit that pavement, that's how you design a road. You don't design it based on section and thickness and all that. It's actually how many axles or tires hit that pavement during a period of time. That's what makes roads fit. That's, of course, all the other factors as far as, freeze and thaw and water and, drainage and all that. But that's the function of the road is, on the highway you see a thicker section. On side streets it's a thinner section. Because it doesn't take as much abuse as the highway. So that's exactly what Lucy said. All right, so we made that comment, and then, of course, sidewalks are required. The cul-de-sac, we don't see an issue being a little bit longer, as long as fire department and planning commission agree to that. We don't have any details of that 168-foot strip, little Tamar, and we need some details on that, but we don't see any engineering. It's more aesthetic and screening. Detention, your engineer needs to check if the different layout will increase or decrease the impervious surface and volume. It can accommodate that. That's the highlights. All the details we will take care of during engineering stage after it's released from the planning commission. There's only one comment that I didn't put in here, and the road name, Pembroke Avenue.
Yes.
You start from Clark coming in and then it stops, but you start again from Gratiot and it stops. Now, looking at it, there are no lots proposed on Pembroke Avenue from Gratiot. But normally we try not to confuse the postmaster and first responders that way. So I'm not sure if this is something that needs to be entertained.
We saw that after we had submitted the plans, and based on the discussion tonight, I think street names will change anyway, so that's good.
That's all we have.
Dan, back there.
The cul-de-sac, you moved it to 96 feet.
We can, yes.
That's predicated on the height of any houses in that cul-de-sac.
30 feet or less.
30
Yep.
feet. If it goes above 30, we gotta open it up to 120. No parking on one side of the road was perfect. And then the only other question I think was already answered was that park, the wooded park that backs up to Pembroke North. If there was any type of, planned, play area or anything, ease of access for us because there is no access to get in there. So, and I think that was all taken care of. So.
Okay. Thanks, Greg.
And it's okay to, thank you. And again, I just want to echo our thanks for allowing us to have this in person. I know you guys could have all been home in your living room doing this on Zoom. Zoom is effective, but it's just not the same as having this exchange. So we certainly appreciate you taking your time tonight. In no particular order, I'll try to go through and hit some of the highlights. The Paymar land seems to be some concern or maybe some anxiety, some questions in that. If the concern is such that you'd like us to just leave that as open space, we can do that to keep the project moving forward. Maybe at some time in the future we come back and have a secondary discussion or something, but that's not a deal breaker either way. We have a strong business relationship with Paymar. They had talked to us and they said, we could use a little bit of extra land with the gas main situated the way it is. We can't really push the cul-de-sac in there. It extends that length beyond the 616 feet. So we thought this might be a good deal. Again, if that's given a lot of heartburn or something, we can step away from that. Maybe we revisit it at some point in the future. The aeration of the sedimentation basin, I think Sir Meg was going to throw a pencil at me or something if I agreed to that. The whole idea of the sedimentation basin is to allow the water to calm and settle in there. If it was a detention basin, we could do that. Because it's a sedimentation prior to going into the shook drain, I think there's a problem with that. We can look at it with our engineer, but I have a feeling he's shaking his head no. From an engineering standpoint, I don't think that's feasible.
Okay.
But we can look at it though.
Not for this type of detention basin, right? Because again, this is a sedimentation basin, not a detention basin.
Right. The whole idea is to have the water calming.
One or the other. I mean, like you go to Quail Run, and there's a fountain. You come in.
That's a
keeping the
detention
water.
basin.
So why do you choose one over the other?
This is how this development was permitted, and correct me if I'm wrong, that was before our time. Sometimes the state will allow you to discharge to a drain with just a sediment basin, just capture all the sediment before that, because technically they have capacity for that drain to take the runoff.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how that was allowed. And the same thing with the core, I believe.
Yes.
The same thing.
The cut-through traffic issue, there were some discussions about that, and also about flipping the phasing. It's ironic that you suggest we flip the phasing. We had a discussion that we didn't want to put the existing residents of Pembroke through all our construction traffic and that. That's why we wanted to do, even though the Gratiot entrance would be more expensive to start with because of connecting to Gratiot, we thought that was the fair and right thing to do rather than have all our construction traffic go through the existing Pembroke. Also, the fire department may have an issue. Pembroke still only has the one connection, even though it's kind of a duplex. We're putting an awful lot of homes on just that one connection to Clark Street if we just do that entrance. So I respect your comment, but we really, I think, need to stick with the connection coming off of Gratiot first. It just seems to make a lot more sense.
So you're not even putting in the cul-de-sac road until after you're finished the first phase?
We phased it as 2 phases, mainly because in any given year we'll be developing between 8 and 10 or 11 subdivisions. So it's kind of a function of cash flow. Ideally, we'd like to develop the entire community in 1 phase, and we probably will. But depending on when we develop it and other projects that we have going in the company, we may just do phase one so that we can use the money we would have otherwise used for that cul-de-sac to maybe develop somewhere else or add to another development somewhere else. So hopefully we'll develop the entire Pembroke South as one event, but we wanted to have the phase line in there to give us that flexibility to be able to do it in 2 phases if need be.
I guess I have a huge objection to that in the fact that if for some reason the economy tanks like it did before and all of a sudden, okay, that doesn't get finished. And in order to start it, you need that startup money to build a street. At least if the street's still there, you can throw up houses at that point at a less expensive startup cost and the street's there. And so I'm looking at Pembroke now and all those back streets, if that would have been the start of the subdivision, because the streets were all done at the same time, if the houses would have went up there, the traffic wouldn't have been back there. They had to go through all the older parts of the sub. And that comes back to the village has to fix all those streets when you guys leave. And again, back to the bonds and that mess, the village had to put the final coat on Pembroke. It didn't get covered by you guys because we took the streets before they were finished. So I don't want to see us get into that kind of deal again. If you start in the cul-de-sac and when that cul-de-sac is done, the village shouldn't be stuck with having to fix all that after you guys leave. That one worries me a lot. I want to see, plus you got all the trucks going through those. Eventually, if you start there, those people are done with the construction once they live there. The ones if you start in the phase one that you got it, those people have to live with construction through your first phase, through your second phase. Their streets have to be full of dirt and mud and trashed. And I don't think there should be any construction traffic, even if you started with that back section going through Pembroke North, if you want to call it that. I mean, once your houses are done in there and we fix the roads, there should be no construction traffic traveling through that. I mean, the occasional truck, but I mean, there's a lot of damage that happens. We had trees taken out in Decorah because the trucks go through it, sidewalks and curbs torn apart. I want to eliminate that as much as possible and push it out towards Gratiot. That's where you finish up. But I'd like to see, of course, Gratiot, that entrance start. And I guess maybe that's a place where cement roads versus tar roads come into play, because obviously it's less expensive for you to put the whole thing in tar and curbs versus Decorah Park and Decorah Park North. You put all the cement in, well, not north, you put all the south in at one time, and then you went and did north separately all at one time. But at least there were roads there, so when you came back, there's a place to build. If it would have just been a big old empty space, would we have necessarily gotten the growth back there again? I don't know. Because you just said it's a cash flow thing. Right now, while things are hot, there's cash. And you have a relationship to that, to a paving company now, which probably, I would hope, costing Mark a little less. But I really would like to see that done. I don't know how other people feel about it, but
Based on your current projections, obviously you can't take a picture. What's your start to finish time with being? How long do you see yourself there?
We are happy to sell 2 to 3 homes a year, or a month a year. Yeah. 2 to 3 homes a month.
Okay.
So 2 years.
Okay.
2 years we would be through there. Going back to the phasing again, I wanted to point it out just in transparency. My projection or my guess would be we'll develop the whole thing, but your ordinance does allow phasing. As far as where we start construction and that's really an issue we have to be able to control for marketing reasons and things like that. I respect your views, but we need to be able to control where we build and in what order and things like that. The phasing, I don't think it's going to be an issue. You did mention earlier, in your earlier comments, that you wanted to make sure the village attorney ensured that you had the right financial sureties and things like that. Based on the condition of the village now, I'm certain that will happen. So what happened before, your village attorney will make sure that you have sureties in place that are valid and will be protecting the village. So I think there's some safeguards in there that will give you that peace of mind. One thing I didn't mention, just kind of jumping around on my list, one of the other reasons why we're converting this from duplex to single family, and I don't think it's any point of argument, but it was very interesting. When we originally converted this from what it had been to the duplexes, it was in part because of the New Haven schools. The New Haven schools have grown in reputation and quality so much that we now feel it's very appropriate to bring more families into the community. So that's another reason why it was duplexes back then, because there were some concerns about it. Now we have no concerns about that. We're very happy to advertise and bring kids into the New Haven School District. Concrete versus asphalt roads. One of the things, and again, Mr. Med brought up some very excellent points. When the roads are finally dedicated and they're the villages to maintain, the maintenance cost is going to be higher for concrete. The time, the disruption, the inconvenience for your customer, for your resident is going to be higher for concrete. Back when these roads were built, the engineering standards were different. Back in the day, you had your own standard. It wasn't built to the county standard. Now all communities that allow public or private streets or villages that have their public streets, they say you must build it to the county standard, so you get a higher quality road right out of the gate. Back when the roads that you mentioned were built, those were built to the current village standards. Those village standards aren't the standards that they are today, so you're going to get a different road. The other thing is, with asphalt pavement now, we do something that, I don't think it's a technical term, but we call it level pave. Normally with asphalt pavement, you've got the curb and gutter, and then you leave that final 1.5 inches off the surface. And what happens is, when you're scraping the streets of mud or snow plowing or whatever, you chip up the face of the curb. And then you come back and you do base repairs and you put that wearing course on and it looks nice, but you don't have that 1.5 inches of strength for the whole time you're building the houses, which is when the roads are under the heaviest loads. So now what we've begun doing is we cap the entire road, but we don't put the full crown in the road. So instead of having the regular crown in the middle of the road, we have a little bit of crown, but a very little bit. And then when we get close to building out the community, we come in and we mill the edge of the pavement about 6 feet in, and then we put that 1.5 inch cap on. It gives the customers, our customers, your residents, it gives them a nice finished product. It gives the crown of the road, but during the heavy loads, you've still got that full section in there. So that's something we would do with the asphalt pavement. In doing that, it makes it almost the same cost as doing them in concrete in the first place. So we can discuss that. That's what we would propose, though, is to doing with the asphalt pavement. We like that as a finished product better. But ultimately, I just want to let you know, your road standards are different today than they were back then, as far as what you require, as far as the cross-section and the design standards and that.
It's cheating, but in a good way.
Yes. Yes.
Well, I mean, exactly what you said is what it was. I mean, here's the cement and there's the tar down below it.
Yep.
And, you know, they never got finished, and then the village had to finish those.
Yep. With streetlights, we'll contract with DTE Energy for their public street lighting program. And it used to be that they would only contract with the municipality. Now they will contract directly with the association. So we'll do that. That was an oversight that we didn't put on the plans, but we'll do the streetlights in there. There was discussion about the street signs and whether we do upscale street signs or not. Some communities where they have public streets, if the association wants an upscale street sign, they enter into an agreement with the local unit of government to pay that extra cost for them. If there's an overwhelming desire to have a nicer street sign, we'd be open to that, as long as legally we could coordinate a mechanism to do that. There is a significant cost difference to it, so I guess I'm speaking against myself a little bit, but if you wanted the upscale street signs, I would suggest you have us provide them and us have the association maintain them in the future, so that, as you mentioned, it's not on the village's dime. It's not a huge thing. It could make a difference if that's something that the folks were interested in. Then there was questions about the associations. You had a question about combining the associations. There was some cost sharing association questions in that. One of the big reasons why we want it to be separate associations is the board in Pembroke is all in place. All 5 board members are in place. If we combine those, first off, 66 2/3% of the residents of Pembroke would have to vote to add that land. We don't know if they would, we don't know if they wouldn't or whatever, but there would be a process that they would have to amend their master deed to bring that land into their condominium. The other thing would be they would control all 5 board seats. That would be difficult for us coming in as a new builder to have the residents basically controlling the association. So they would control the budget, they would control the contractors for the landscaped entrance and things like that. That's just something that's very, very difficult for us to kind of be tied to that. As far as the cost sharing, as Brandon mentioned, there's already a cost sharing agreement in place for the stormwater basin, for the sedimentation basin. Other than that, each association would be responsible for their own open space areas, their own playgrounds, their own entrances, things like that. And I guess you could look at it from the standpoint of there'd be, bigger numbers, but there'd be more components to take care of. So at the end of the day, on a per unit basis, it probably winds up being a wash in that regard. But we need to have the associations and the master deeds be separate so that we, as the developer, have the control of the association going into the community. And then there was discussion on the elevations. The only thing with the elevations is, as was mentioned, there are different elevations that can be chosen. And I was writing it down when you said the words, people choose to put the money on the inside of the house if they don't choose an upgraded elevation. Everybody has a certain budget that they're working within, and they can decide to spend $4,000 on an upgraded elevation, or they can spend that on carpet upgrades or fixture upgrades or tile or whatever on the inside of the home. And today it seems like the customer wants to spend that money on the inside of the home. So somebody may not like what an elevation looks like, but somebody else may like that elevation. There's a lot of taste involved in that. So we offer a wide variety of elevations, and then I think we have 7 plans that we offer, something like that, and then each plan has multiple elevations. And then the last thing I just wanted to comment on, you had made a comment about the homes in Pembroke being stepped back.
Yeah.
In Pembroke, even though Lombardo developed it, we didn't build any of the original homes in Pembroke. We sold those to, I believe there was 4 builders at the time that we sold those lots to. And even though the setback was at the front, they opted to push the houses back further. The result is the folks there in the homes that are sitting back further have much less usable rear yard area. They have a larger setback, but they have much less usable rear yard. Most people want the house as far forward as possible so they can maximize their rear yard area. It's compounded in the example you showed, though, is because as you come in and the street starts to curve, it's right on the curve where those houses are set back and now the new houses are forward. In Pembroke South, we won't have that problem because all the homes will be at a uniform setback, so you won't see it there.
I am seeing it in Decorah North now, though, that it's becoming jagged with the basements that you put in there.
Yeah. I don't think it'll be to the same extent, though, that you saw in Pembroke.
What about the setback, 25 feet on the front? Because driveways just aren't long enough. And I'll send you guys the pictures. I took a ton of pictures in there of just, those driveways aren't long enough. And if you're gonna restrict the parking on street, then that becomes even harder for parking.
Yeah.
If there's, they're gonna put the car somewhere.
It's a real challenge though, because then if we do that, we either cut down on the building envelope or we need to go into the rear yard setback. And then we go into the problem of having less usable rear yard space. I would rather have enforcement language in the master deed and the bylaws, and maybe include the village in some of that enforcement if there's issues with people parking over the sidewalk or something like that. I'd rather manage it that way than make a uniform change just for a handful of instances or something.
So what you're saying is, these people, where are they gonna put their truck? Because none of the trucks fit in most of the lots. So they buy a truck, and it don't fit on the driveway, it's always hanging over. That becomes a safety issue for the people in the neighborhood. And, it looks terrible too, but I think it's really important that they have enough driveway to put a truck on it and park it safely and securely. And I did see one guy, I mean, he's got his truck so close to that door. I don't know how he does it. I can't do that with mine, but to fit it on his driveway, that guy will eventually run through his door.
Yeah, but to make the entire community compatible for everybody having a big truck may not be practical though, because of the number of people who are actually going to have that large of a vehicle. Like I say, I'd rather look at some other ways to enforce that or to deal with that.
Then you're putting the village in the place of getting the county sheriff to go ticket.
Well, we can do it through the association also, though. We can put it in the bylaws, in the master deed. We can put enforcement in that as well, though.
I know, but those things are still get thrown on the guy, on the neighbor, having to be a pain to them by saying, well, we're gonna fine you. No association likes to run around doing that. It's not fun for the people on that board, and it does become lax. But then I just think the space needs to be provided so these people can park a car on it. That's all.
Okay, all right. We'd be glad to answer any other questions that you folks may have.
I don't remember, what was the number? I mean, typically, most of the communities are 25 feet from sidewalk to garage. What's our minimum?
Do you have a full-size site plan there?
You spec 20 on your current.
I need to look. It's embarrassing, but when we look at your site plan, we don't have full-size living.
What was your question, Smith?
What's our minimum?
There, right.
25 is our standard.
Yeah, minimum setback is 25 feet.
25, yeah, that's typical for community. Yeah, the old one, it says minimum is 12.
And on those houses that have the bigger front garages, that's where those cases are more prevalent. The cars can't fit on the driveway. The garage comes out so much further than the rest of the house. So you're losing that square footage, and that you're getting a bigger front yard on one side of the road, and a smaller front yard on the other side where the garage is on. So they're, let's push the square footage on that front on the other side then, if that's where we're looking. It makes those designs less practical. You've got almost 20 by 20 space, a front yard extra, and the sides of the garages come out first. If you go look at the houses and you see where the issues are, it's on most of the houses with the front garage. So it's not on
John did share with me, the current setbacks in Pembroke North, to call it, are 15.
the core part.
Oh, sorry, my bad, the core part.
And the setback starts at the front of the garage. So
Yes.
The garage being there is irrelevant to that.
Well, that's what I'm saying. A truck is more than 20 feet.
I understand that, but the 20 feet starts at the front of the garage, not
Exactly.
close back here. It is no different than, this house is kind of a whole flat front. The setback starts here.
Yeah. I guess I'm not explaining it right then. So on that plan there, you're getting more square footage of the house because you're going equal with the garage. So on the one where the garage is out further, you're getting less square frontage on the square footage on the first floor because it's being pushed back here.
Yeah, but I don't think that's,
But I mean, to me, the point is you should be able to park the car on the driveway without it hanging out.
yeah, but the frontage is gonna be the same whether it's this plan that's straight or with the garage that juts forward.
I know, but some of them aren't even 20 feet that are in Pembroke now.
I know, but that's before, we're not talking about that, we're talking about the new moving forward, right?
Yes.
And this
Yes,
says
even so, the
20 feet.
standards have changed from before.
Yeah, you're showing 20 feet, right?
But the
Yeah.
road is not
Okay.
7,
And our minimum is
25 feet.
So, I guess a couple of maybe potential solutions. Right now, we're showing a 35-foot rear yard setback. If we slid the entire building envelope back and made it a 25-foot setback in front and a 30-foot setback in the rear, it still gives us that same building envelope.
Yeah.
If that's something that's acceptable, it's an additional 5 feet lost in the rear yard. The other option would be, and it would be a little more trouble to manage it, is if we had, since this is a PUD, if we had the flexibility to have either 20 and 35 or 25 and 30, and have that be a discussion that our sales manager has with the customer, and do you envision you having a large pickup? If so, we can move the house back and have less of a rear yard setback. Again, I'm just going back to,
It's a great compromise.
I'm concerned about having a uniform setback for a small number of occurrences.
It just isn't though. Great drive through there.
It is, I live there, it is. Out of 130 units, there's maybe 10 that have a truck that is that big. It's a
far
percentage
more than
so
that,
small.
right? And there's cars that don't even fit on the driveway.
That's not true.
Yes, it is.
No, it's not.
You can call me a liar if you want.
I
I'll show you the
I
picture.
am, Rob.
I'll send you the
Because I live there.
picture.
I
Okay,
am there all the
Greg, we'll
time.
go back to
So-
Yeah, I know. There's zero.
I was more so questioning if that variable aspect of the setback being a desirable design aspect to the community. Because I think most communities have that more uniform setback standard, and it creates a better sightline for the vision versus having a 5-foot difference like that. I think wouldn't be as appealing, I think.
Yeah.
What would you guys have, like, do you have a preference on that or any opinion on that?
No, not really, and again, we could move the front yard setback that additional 5 feet to get the 25 feet, but hopefully you guys would agree that we could then reduce the rear yard setback to offset that, so we still have the same size building envelope. That allows us to have the bigger houses that you were advocating earlier, right? So,
And it's the person's choice. Like I bought the biggest ranch I could buy, but I bought a lot with 100, on a pie, so I got 100 feet in the back and 50 in the front. So that, but you take my house that was the biggest ranch and put it on, the lot a couple doors down, it don't fit the same, and there wouldn't be no yard. But yeah, that's exactly part of the sales, and it was something that Heartland said to me. They said, well, if you want this house, I wouldn't put it on this lot,
right.
because you're not gonna have any yard. But we had a really good salesperson back then. Your staff was very good too. There was a lot of input when we were going back and forth between Lombardo and
That's something I hope we can get some community feedback on. I think I'd like to, sort of get a general consensus of what people would prefer there. Because I think it's pretty much all, for me personally, I agree with John. I think I like, if it's gonna be one, it's gonna be across the board.
We're fine with that, we're fine with that.
But maybe wait and see what we hear from our public input
Okay.
and whatnot.
But the ordinance says 25 feet.
The ordinance does it.
So, yeah, ordinance says 25 feet. With the PUD, it allows flexibility for the amending of different setback and dimensional standards. So, this is the same thing for side yard setbacks and everything else. They maintain some of the minimums, but they're all, I think across the board, they're a little bit less than what the schedule requires, but they maintain, let's say, the 9-foot minimum separation that the ordinance requires too.
Right.
So,
Okay.
So we'll wait on that one.
Okay, any other questions? We'd be glad to try to address them.
So
Ahmed?
what's the final resolution on the setback?
That's
Undetermined.
Undetermined.
Well,
I mean, if we want, I mean, do we want to?
Well, are you hoping to get the input at the public hearing about the setbacks, or?
I mean, what is everybody's feelings
I don't know
on
if
it?
you will.
I'll start with you, Rach. What are your feelings on it? 2025.
I say 20 because I don't think that many people have such a big vehicle. I live in Amherst, so our driveways are next to none, and I don't have a problem with any of my neighbors, and I have a big truck, they have a big truck, and we talk to each other when there's a problem with someone parking somewhere.
wow.
No, that's not.
So,
Okay, Steve, your thoughts?
No, I wouldn't have a problem with it. I mean, I don't know if the public would have much of a
Thoughts
position
on
on
it,
it
yeah.
either. But, no, I don't.
Didn't you come back to me?
Oh, I thought you were pretty.
Well, I'm 25 on the front, but I'm more than amenable on the back to make it less. And obviously, they want a house with a bigger footprint and a big yard, they're gonna put it on a bigger lot than their house, or they're not gonna choose a big old ranch to put on that property if they want a big yard and a big house. So I would rather just see that all the cars fit on their driveways.
Tracy?
I would like us to give them some type of direction.
That's what I
tonight.
mean. Like,
Yes.
what are your thoughts?
So the 20 is fine.
Okay.
Again, I agree, but I also want to, I have to say this.
Mhm.
You know, whoever is buying these homes, we're not blindfolding them. I mean, adults are purchasing these homes, they're making adult decisions, so at some point, we have to.
You know what you're buying.
Right.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay.
Greg?
I'm okay with 20 feet. I think if you move it back to 25, like you said, the rear yard becomes 30. But then if you want to put a shed in, you've got to keep it 5 feet from the
Yeah.
property line anyway, so you're actually almost losing 10 feet. If you want to put a fire pit back there, it's got to be 5 feet from the property line.
Rear to rear, the houses are 10 feet closer also, because you're losing 5 and 5 in the rear to rear
So I
relationship.
think having a little bit smaller front yard is better than having almost no backyard.
Liz?
I like the 25 feet.
Like 25.
Yeah, we get big vehicles in mine. And if
Samantha?
anybody comes over, they're behind us.
Okay, I'm gonna throw a wrench at all of it.
All right, right.
There's a train of thought that where that 25 comes from.
Okay.
Normal parking stall is 20 feet long, okay? Then you would think there's a space between the front of the car and the garage, and that's typically a 5-foot strip for somebody to go around. That's where the 25 comes in. So, if you reduce that to 20 feet, nobody's gonna park exactly at the garage door. Okay, so they're gonna go backwards to leave the space for them to maneuver. So what we're trying to prevent here is somebody hanging the pickup truck into the sidewalk, and now somebody cannot access that sidewalk. That sidewalk needs to be clear at all times. So you have to think about that.
Okay. So, 20, 25. Steve?
But I'm flexible in the rear yard.
I mean, he brings up a great point.
yeah.
I'm with the 25, so.
I mean, yeah, I would probably agree with, because that could happen.
Okay. I think the consensus is 25.
Yeah.
But are you okay with us reducing the rear yard then to
Yes.
offset that?
Oh,
Okay.
You're good with that? Yeah.
Now, let me complicate this more.
Go ahead.
I have not seen your floor plan, so sometimes the garage is recessed back. So the front of the house is a little bit, up front. Now, with that, not going to create a problem with parking, but it will give you more flexibility in the back. So I don't know if this commission will allow you to.
So if I understand what you're saying is maybe we make the setback
On the
25 feet to the garage,
To the garage.
so that if we have a recessed
Yeah.
garage or a garage that extends out, you could have a different offset there.
So if this commission allows these guys to 25 minimum to the garage, but 20 to the front of the house.
Yeah,
I think that would help them.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, that is what I was talking about, is not
But is
necessarily the
that
house,
gonna
I'm
be
talking
the-
about the garage, the driveway length. I mean, if you push the house out at 20 feet, I wouldn't have a problem with that, the porch.
But my house is, mine's that way.
Yeah.
My garage is back and front, so I have a really long
Driveway,
right, but I use square footage in the home now.
but you have a bigger, you have a even smaller front yard than some.
Right.
Because your house comes out further on that.
Just in
on
the
that
interest of time, I'm gonna let John.
Yep. So one way to word that be minimum driveway length of 25 feet and then 20-foot setback to the house. Should be worded that way instead of having two separate setback standards. You can just say 25-foot driveway length, 20-foot building setback.
Okay. But then we're still okay with the 30-foot rear yard setback? Because if we're going 25 feet to the garage,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, I don't think it would be an issue because it's more so the front yard sight lines that you're probably more concerned with, it being more uniform versus the back.
Okay.
So.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay, we have to set a public hearing for next month. Thank you very much, Greg, Brandon.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. And the date is April 6th at 7 o'clock. Good motion for that. Wait, mine, is there a second? Second. Liz, all in favor, I think this means a roll call. Sorry, yes, it does.
Susan Pankowski.
Yes.
Lucy Dilbert.
Yes.
Jenny Brodzik.
Yes.
Rob Pennell.
Yes.
Craig Sims.
So that should.
And Steve Teller.
Yes.
What time is that at?
7.
We're gonna do a public hearing at 7?
Yeah. Because we won't have too much time.
Okay, I'm just making sure because he starts at 7.
Just a procedural,
Oh, your motion carried on that.
Oh, yeah.
just a procedural question. For the public hearing, should we expect to do another presentation similar to this? Do we need revised plans by that, or can we wait until after?
I think we can wait for the revised plans. If you want to do a similar presentation or like a more summarized version, that's welcome too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we'll do the same. I assume you want to do it again in person.
We would prefer to.
Our community input will be Zoom. So we'll reach out to them and then Ryan will maybe relay as if there's a hearing, like communication issue, we'll
Okay.
relay the questions that way.
Okay.
Because we're doing Zoom, do we want to take people that are on, paying
Yeah.
attention, can we get their input now? So that we get it versus having to wait a month to get
We'll
their
let
input?
them do that from call, we'll let them do it at the end of the meeting. Call from the floor. Or the call from the, yeah.
Public comment.
Thank you. Yes, well, I'll open it up to that. Okay, zoning review. This is just a general discussion and a request of everyone currently on planning that you all take a couple hours this month to review our current zoning throughout the village. See if it is, within our master plan, if they flow with each other and whatnot. If you'd like to make any changes, any revisions to what we currently have throughout the community.
Thank you.
So, thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night, thank you.
So, if you could just take a couple hours of your time and, really look at it and see if it's exactly what we envision going forward with our master plan, if it needs any changes or otherwise.
And do we want to address the president's email as far as minimum standards being raised on certain items? Like I know a big one that she spoke to me about was using vulcanized wood.
Right now,
At
I'd
the
like to
base.
stick just with the zoning, and then maybe we can tackle that one the next month, because I feel like
What if
one
we-
is Yeah.
If we tackle that now though, won't it, before building or permits are put on more houses? That they're selling, that
I don't
we
know
address
that we can
those?
impose anything on this at that time.
Well, whatever our standards are at the time they pull a building permit is what they have to do. There's not a, something else I noticed that
Building
we
code,
do,
the building code, yeah.
Okay.
something that I haven't seen us do recently is, and I've seen in a lot of the minutes, going through all the minutes, or not minutes, but the ordinances, is do we need to adopt the most up-to-date BOCA, the most up-to-date water? Because we haven't done that in many, many, many years.
I can't speak for building, but for water and sewer, we do go by 10 state standards, and those are pretty recent. But all updates go through Eagle and GLWA, so formerly the DEQ and Great Lakes Water Authority. And we constantly update those, but we haven't done any standards updates or ordinance updates since we took over.
I don't think it's happened in the 15 years that I've been here. And it looked like it happened about every 4 years under administrations. Prior to that, they would adopt the latest, greatest building codes as part of the village.
So yeah, if there's a reference, you go adopt the most recent one, and that goes from prior experience that goes for fire, building, mechanical, electrical, all that. For building, for engineering, you go through and update your standard detail based on current construction standards. Because there are no 2020 engineering standards. We develop those for the village.
So the,
Well, I
something you need
believe I
to
seen
send the council.
something about doing just that. I seen some other correspondence between council about updating to the current building codes and stuff.
Yeah,
So I can take back a little bit. Or did we all get that? Was that
I don't
included in
believe we
that
all got that.
correspondence with Ann, that Ann gave us?
I don't believe we all got it, no.
Okay.
Because I went through all the ordinances looking for the mobile home, I was seeing where that was coming up. And it hadn't been changed. I think it was Brett Harris's first term was the last time we updated those standards. So that was like 2002, 2003. And I could not find an ordinance after that that adopted the latest building codes. So I think that puts us kind of behind the,
So Jen, you want us strictly to review zoning?
Yes, but we can address the building codes.
and I don't even know if those ordinances are our privy. All those were approved by council. So I don't know if we send it to council or council disapproves those updated standards. I don't know if we can put our input into those or if it just is a council.
I think typically it's a council action for building codes. Planning commission, usually the purview is strictly related to zoning, land use, those type of ordinance-related activities. Village council would kind of do their own adoption of it.
So it would be a simple request to council, move to adopt the 2020 Michigan Building Code or International Building Code, and also same thing for fire, whatever the fire department are trained and accustomed with, then they would make the same recommendation, and council would officially adopt that, and now anything comes into the village have to adhere to those standards.
I think there was an electrical, there was like 4 ordinances at one time they were approving.
Yep.
So maybe we could recommend that council that they, or Tracy can take that to council and ask it.
So I will go ahead and do that. I will send out notice tomorrow that that's what we're looking for.
I'm sure there's a big difference, right, Smed, between something maybe 2002 and 2020.
You'll be surprised. Sometimes they make a lot of updates, and sometimes it's just minor. It depends on the code and that year, specific year. We've seen dramatic changes, and we've seen very minor changes.
I know I'm only here as the Zoom moderator, but I'm almost positive at my time on council, we've at least done the building code, and I'm very confident that we've done the fire code as well, in just the past 2-3 years at most.
Okay, I just didn't see it in that file that I went through.
Yeah, I don't
And
remember.
maybe those things aren't in there yet, I don't know.
Yeah.
So I have a question that maybe John could answer, or possibly his friend. So, if council updates those building standards, but we want to go a step further with, like, say, the womanized, that's still a council direction, correct? Because that's not necessarily a building code.
Yeah, I'm not sure how that works. I haven't really interacted with that part of the ordinances too much. I don't know if Sir Matt has, in terms of creating ordinances that go above and beyond the standard building code that's universal.
Yeah, you would have to adopt specific ordinance to allow for that, more restrictive ordinance. But you can reference, let's say, that you're going for the 2018 Michigan Building Code and the village, so-and-so code for, whatever, so that you require above and beyond that standard code.
Because I believe some like lakefront communities, they may have like some extra like wind bracing type standards where like they require like a higher standard because of the winds and stuff like that can come off the lake. But I'm not sure if that's already in the code or if they adopted from above and beyond.
Is that something that comes from us as a recommendation, or is that something that they would?
I think that'd be something that'd be coming from, like, so I'm just saying, like, either the building official or fire or someone else, and then making that recommendation to council. To then do that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Because the president made the request to us to look at those type
Right,
of things.
that's what I'm asking.
So it may be more of her preview as president items to present what she wants to. And that would probably be something that's nice to have in place before Pembroke. Especially because you're talking all those homes that they're looking for in the back there are along the floodplain. It would probably help save those houses if there ever was the 100-year disaster. It's pretty common now.
And that's something actually too where like, I believe council could create like a special committee or special group to research this type of stuff and then present their findings and then kind of go, and then conclude the professionals like the building official or whatever else on this commission to then research it and make a recommendation in terms of what they think would be best. So that's also within the council's purview, I imagine. So.
And based on your experience, how often do communities increase those standards outside of the lakefront issue? What do you know? Because I've looked in other communities and I'm not finding anything.
Yeah, I mean, from our interaction with it, like I don't know very well, but I know from our interaction, it's usually they just adopt whatever the latest standards are, and it's kind of is what it is. But if you guys want to do something above and beyond, that's possible too. So it's just not as common.
What you're saying is kind of what they did too. They would have like the full FOCA code for an ordinance, and then the electrical, and then there was another one that addressed certain issues. Like it was a very short ordinance that maybe addressed 3 pages worth of specific items that I think were beyond.
Most likely.
Did you want to add anything to the zoning review?
Well, I guess like looking at the map, just analyzing every single zone, whether it's single family, multifamily, commercial, the downtown districts, just making sure that it's continued, or it's consistent with the vision that we have going forward, what you see, and then if you guys have any issues with specific areas that you'd like to address and try to change some of those zoning areas. That's something that we can look at now and update that map. Because if you look at the zoning map right now, there are a couple areas that are a little more spotty in terms of there's some like random zoning areas that don't really have like complementary, where you have like light industrial next to like single family. You may want to try to avoid those type of things. You may have more of a transition or some type of thing like that. So that would impact ultimately what the future land use map would look like. And then eventually if the village council wants to take action to rezone that land, then they have a guidance for what that rezoning should look like.
Anybody any questions on that? Just good? Okay, planners report, I'm assuming we're good?
I think that's everything.
Okay, public comments, we're allowed to let public comment on agenda items if they like. Brian?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Dan
I was
has his hand up.
doing the research on the building code. We do have Dan Vinniger. I'm going to, Dan, I'm going to mute you. Or ask to unmute. You can unmute. There you go.
Can you hear me?
Go
Everybody hear me?
Yep, go ahead.
Okay, I'll try to make it quick. Okay, so one association versus two associations, I think that makes a lot more sense to do one association. I really urge you guys to try to press them on that. Between Decorah and Decorah North, I think a lot more should be accomplished if both associations move on. Let's see, what else? He said something about, it would take 2/3 of the current board to approve it to incorporate the new additions. I don't think that would be a problem. I think Decorah unanimously, Brian obviously can correct me if I'm wrong, unanimously voted to incorporate the new additions from Lombardo recently. I really think just for the cohesion and things like that for the neighborhood, I think you guys should try to really press them on getting one HOA instead of two. In terms of Pamar addition or whatever you want to call it, separation, the splitting of the lot, I just want to reference, I'm not speaking on behalf of code enforcement, but as I am the code enforcement officer, I just want to share an experience from that perspective. There was a 2-year lawsuit in regards to a property on Victoria Street that was basically using it for industrial use. And there was a lack of screening and whatnot, and that was literally butted up against the west side of the existing Pembroke. And it looked really bad back there. So I just want to let you guys know, if a new addition of a subdivision is going to be back up against an industrial zone area, be careful. That took 2 years. That was a long drawn out. It wasn't costly, it was a lot of communication and then sitting and waiting and whatnot, but it took 2 years for that to clear out, so please be careful about that. I think it might be better used as a green space, and again, if you incorporate it into the existing HOA, I think Mr. Sims was pointing out, they could share the cost and whatnot. Maybe you could put some green space all the way from the retention pond, have a trail back there stretching off the, I don't know, but I would just be careful about getting that over to Pamar and crossing your fingers, because that doesn't often work out in the residents' favor in this village, in our district. So try to keep it one HOA, in my opinion, and be careful with that turnover land over to Pamar. As they start developing, just again from a code enforcement perspective, just make sure that they cut their lots. Again, if they don't, send me something. But just keep that in mind, make sure they maintain their vacant lots as they start developing. Me personally, it seems like I might be in the minority, but I tend to agree with, I believe it was Robert Cannell who was mentioning that the houses with big giant garages that jut out, they do look kind of weird when you're driving through. I don't know, just personally, and then those half porches, yeah, I tend to agree. Again, I think with Robert and I might be in the minority, but I think those half porches are a little goofy. I think it looks more natural for them to stretch the entire width of the house, but not huge points. So I guess that's really all I got. Just I liked the meeting, so kudos to everybody involved, and I think you guys really had your best interest with the community. Thank you guys for everything you did.
Okay, if we have anybody else that would like to talk during the public comment, if you could use the raise hand or unmute so that we can go ahead and let you speak.
I think there's only 2 people left, a phone number and Anthony Reader.
Supervisor Lennox Township.
Okay, I'm not seeing any hands raising, so you're all set, Chairwoman.
Okay, call from the table. Anyone? Rob?
In the past, for what we've learned, and this will is one of the things I get told by Tracy often, is that we learn by our mistakes, and the places we make huge mistakes, we're letting the master deed and the bylaws all be one-sided. We as the village lost total control over things because of the way those things were worded. So I think both those documents need to go to the attorney and get their opinions and protect us, the village, through those documents and the residents. And I think what Craig said about the association, that's a must as well, that the people in Pembroke shouldn't lose control of what goes on just south of them and not have any consistency or power. And I think sharing the cost, because if you think back to poor Pembroke, they couldn't even cut the grass at one point because there was just so few of them. So if this one starts out, they only build 10 homes and it goes broke, and then the grass never gets cut, electricity isn't on, and all the disasters that happen to people in North, in Decorah North, because, or Pembroke, because there's a lack of people. I think we have to get our attorneys on board to review these documents and make sure that there's strength in enforcement and that we're not at the mercy ever again of anybody, Lombardo or whatever builder. Those days are over. We can't allow that to happen to us anymore because it really hurt a lot of people. It caused a lot of problems, especially for those that served on those boards, the associations. I mean, everything was always no, 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 because you only had one person on the board. So they were, until I think they had it worded at 5 years, or was it 10 years? I forget how long that they had total control. But if it just goes to one association, then that board has a say-so right away in what goes on. He kind of said it right there, we want all the control. And we lived with that the last 15 years. And I think that's a bad way to go. I will say about in control, and if you look back in the input from the Planning Commission on the type of homes and the designs of the homes, they got very nitty-gritty into the floor plans and looking for those standards that did happen in Amherst with a theme, or Decorah with a theme.
They did?
Yeah.
Is that what you found in the notes?
Yeah. I also spoke to a way back person, and I mean, it wasn't a one meeting kind of thing. It was review 1, review 2, review 3, review 4. It kept coming back until they came to a compromise on the various things they were looking for, to where they came up with those communities. Except Pembroke. Pembroke wasn't so different people were on the board by then, and it wasn't very as interactive as the Decorah or the Amherst subdivisions were in demanding various things. The Hardy plank siding, all the things that went back and forth. And we didn't discuss that. Are they using vinyl in Pembroke now?
Yes.
So there's a mix.
Well, anything that's been built in the last 3 or 4 years is vinyl siding with the brick front.
So maybe we should nail down that by one standard, not both. Because when you have so few Hardy plank homes, and then they paint it purple, and then the rest of the houses along there only have the, whatever, how many choices of siding did you have?
There was, I don't know, 20, 30, there was quite a few.
Really? Wow, everybody picks the same colors. Because if you look on Ravine Street in North, or in the Decorah South, the housing colors don't vary. But if you throw in a Hardy plank guy there, and they paint the house purple or teal or whatever color they paint it, it's going to look way out of place versus, I almost rather see all the different color varieties, or not so extreme one way or the other.
Come to Amherst, we got quite a variety.
Yeah. But the more variety that you get, the better it looks.
Oh, come to Amherst.
Well, they do die down in color. We have
There's a Tiffany blue
house.
house, and then there's a brown house a couple doors down. It's crazy.
We had the Tiffany blue house that shined for many years until it dulled down a bit from the glare. But I do see that house from Clark Street. You can see it all the way across now.
Are you good, Rob?
Yeah, I just would like to see, more consistency
Anybody else?
I
Okay.
just don't see the need for HOA at all. I think you buy a home, it's yours.
Right, the problem is that common spaces are so common now, and they have to be maintained. So that's why they have to create those to bring, you know what I mean, to collect the ones, to cut the grass, basically, at the end of the day.
I just wonder if you tie in both HOAs into one, people in the existing Pembroke, be like, well, now I gotta pay for this, I'm not gonna go over there.
Right, right.
And then the
It's
same
always a
could
battle.
go for the people in Pembroke South, I got a brand new park, I don't wanna go over that, look at that playscape, that's older, or that park is older, this is newer. I think you might have some differences there between both residents.
Right. And you're really not gonna have input from new residents, let's be
No.
honest, because it's not.
The only input you're gonna get, you'll get input from the existing residents when they find out their HOA dues could go up, because
Right.
now they have to maintain more green space.
Right.
So you're supportive of them being separate?
Yeah, I'm fine with it, but, because that's what I see potentially happening.
So that's your last opinion?
What's
Planning
that?
Commissioner, is that your last?
That's my last opinion. That's my last opinion.
I would like to address Lucy's point about because she lives in a platted subdivision, so she doesn't have an HOA.
Yeah, we don't have any parks, we don't have any playgrounds,
But I think
I came to the Coral Park because it had an HOA. Because I lived next to people that I had to sell my house, I had to paint his house. Because the city just didn't enforce things. And I couldn't sell my house unless I cut the guy's grass and took care of, painted his house. And so when I came here, I wanted an association that was gonna be on top of things and hold things to a standard that,
Sure.
because it's my property value. And after I painted that house, I raised the price of painted the neighbor's house. I got 15 more grand for my house because it went from being a dump that he wouldn't invest any money into to me being able to sell my house. And I had a beautiful neighbor in the next, a beautiful neighbor behind, but that one guy, cost me money. I mean, I was better off paying and painting that guy's ranch than it was for me to lose money on my own house. So association does have its place in different ways.
I agree with you.
But they have to be in HOA because they're PUD and they got amenities, so.
And I think we really need to push them on amenities, because I'll go back to, if you look at Haven Ridge Park was paid for by Lombardo to come here and start building. The Cora Park has certain things. Amherst has a pool. There's an expense built into building these houses to give amenities, and I think him building the same playscape that they got over there versus something bigger and some other items, their budget has money in it. They can cry for it if they want. But I had a lot of credit to Brett, because he's the one that forced them to build a whole park over there in Haven Ridge. And to this day, it's an asset to this whole village for them to come in here and build.
The park was there already, they just.
They put up all the nice stuff, the new bathrooms and the bigger. But that was an output for them to build in that community.
They just don't need a playscape.
They built the bathrooms too.
You sure?
Yeah. I remember seeing the plans to those, the park plans. But, the boards then held them to, helping the village improve. And I think that's where we should be too. I mean, they're not even proposing one bench in this community. It'd be nice to have some benches up by the opening, so if you are taking a walk, you got a place to rest after you went to get your mail, you can sit down at the bench, or,
Go grab an ice cream and sit down and eat it.
well, that's another 50 or 200 feet the other way.
You're still walking.
Yeah, you're
The
still walking.
the one thing that I'm apprehensive about the amenities like that though, Rob, is because, or everyone, not just specifically you, is because there's maintenance involved in them. And, we have a ton of amenities, but they come at a huge expense for our community.
Oh, yeah.
And, that's a cost-saving measure for the incoming resident, What are your dues? Did you say $400 or $500 a year?
432.
Which is quite a few dollars for a playscape
And gazebo.
and a gazebo. So, do you know what I'm saying? Those are my reservations about forcing them to add more stuff because, you know, that bench is gonna get destroyed, I know it. And then somebody has to pay to replace it or repair it, and it's the whole community, the homeowners that have to do so. So I guess I'm leaning on Lucy's side of no HOA. But
It does get passed up, like, me and Brian didn't see it, I mean, our stuff's getting older, and the past couple of years, we've put in a lot of money replacing the gazebo and everything else. I mean, down the road, right now, if the sub gets built in 2 years, you probably won't have to replace anything for at least 10.
right,
But once you do,
right,
wow.
right.
It's really, really, I didn't realize how costly it was to replace a lot of these things, and
Right.
it's pretty
It's
expensive.
too bad we didn't hold them to the
Great example.
standards that they did, because when they redid our gazebo, our board, they did it all in the, what's that called, Brian?
The tracks.
The tracks.
Yeah, I don't know if Chuck's was real popular 10, 12 years ago, it was maybe just coming out, but just the sidewalks alone that was.
Now we gotta redo the major trail, and that's
Yeah.
gonna be a huge expense.
I mean, huge amenities comes with a huge
They come with
expense.
expenses. We have this little pavilion, I guess we'll call it, is that what we call it, Rachel?
Something like that,
It's in the
yeah.
park, right? And
Yeah.
the picnic table's beautiful. Well, it was being destroyed every time because it's dark. So now, oh, I know, let's light it. So then that distracts the damagers from showing up. Well, now we're paying electric bill every month. It's just revolving expenses.
Get a high-powered solar light.
Right.
That's what we did in our gazebo.
So this
Well,
way,
it's bright.
I have apprehensions about forcing them to put too many things in. I agree, it looks very nice, okay?
This is 66 homes too, so, I mean,
Even a bench is a big expense for 66 homes.
you could probably get away with a couple benches, you know, rubber powder coated type bench, you know, a whole place gauge system, I don't know. They're expensive.
Well, then we get the liability insurance on that playscape.
And then it's all in the HOA.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Then if you're gonna have combined HOAs, like, those dues are gonna be pretty expensive.
No. I still am looking for, because where we went with the whole Meadow Creek thing is 50% of our homes already are in a low income bracket. I don't want this subdivision to be a starter home price or starter home. I want someone that's coming to look for an upgrade from where they were at. And that we have more opportunities to upgrade from where you're at to something even better within our own community. And those go to amenities. And I know the trail, I gotta pay for it to get it fixed, but I think it's one of the best amenities to have. I would rather pay my $400 a year in dues and have something there and have my park and have my things than pay nothing for nothing.
He didn't address the trail.
$350,000 is a starter home?
What's that?
I said, you think $350,000 is a starter home?
No, but what they were doing I I hope that's the right way they go, but a lot of the homes that they built in Decorah when they started rebuilding were not even as expensive as the homes that were already there when they started building back up.
I will say this, I think you gotta look at the options. If people wanna move here and buy a $350,000 home, there's a $350,000 option. But if they're buying the $250,000 homes, then that's, maybe that's just a thing. We can't, if we build a bunch of $350,000 homes and people say, no, are we deterring rather than, basically, if you look at the average home value in New Haven, it is in that range. 350, it is actually a significant increase from what we're.
That's what I'm saying, we have to jump up at some point to have that in our community.
But some of these
If I
houses,
bought a $350,000 home, I want a trail, I want a
Right,
place
I agree with
here,
this.
I want.
I like the
And someone says to me that I'm spending $350 on my house and I got a $500 association fee, I don't care, because I'm buying this house and I want the things that, even though the pool's a huge expense, how many people would like to not have the pool at Amherst?
Oh, I want it.
I-
Okay, on that note.
I knew that, especially the lady that lives across the street from me.
Yeah.
No, it's beautiful.
But it's a beautiful
It's
amenity.
very nice.
But it
Yes,
just had to be upgraded because the pumps were failing, the
Yes.
tile was coming apart, and that
It
was
was
a
20 years
big
old.
expense.
Big expense. Just the bathrooms there, you have, I mean, there's a lot of those, $1,000 a year to live there and have those amenities,
It's
so.
$1,000?
It's $75 a month, it's $970 to me a year.
Oh, yeah, it's pretty close.
But it's nice, and I knew that beforehand, so.
Oh, so you live across the street from it.
Right, but I knew that, I knew, you know,
Yeah.
with all due respect, I knew how many cars I owned, and I knew how many parking spaces I needed. You know what I mean? You, at some point, some common sense has to kick in
Yeah.
too.
I don't think everybody's gonna think that you can't park on both sides of the street as being.
Well, I'll be honest with you, when before I built my house, I asked them to pull out the master plan, because you know what? I didn't want anybody parking in front of my house.
But Tracy, you are definitely the 1% of people that
Where
are.
is the?
When I moved in, you
But I
could
knew
park
that.
on both sides of the street at Amherst. Now you can't. So just in the last 8 years, that's changed.
Okay,
So
not to be, I'm just gonna,
Yeah.
we'll carry this over if you guys want. So,
Bars
Steve,
and things.
anybody else have anything else different to say?
I know.
No? Okay, Steve, motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second. All in favor?
I.
Aye. 9:32.